back to the channel, everybody. So as you can see, we have the FC back in the garage. I want to be able to drive this on the road, and I only have two more things that will make it so it basically is pretty safe to drive on the road. One of which is new tires. The tires that are on it actually aren't horrible. They don't look horrible. There's no actually dry rot in them, but they have very little tread. They're not in the greatest shape. The back tires aren't too bad. Those are actually relatively new tires that I got at a car swap last fall. But to just feel more comfortable with driving it, I definitely want to get some new front tires. During a test drive, we found out how important tires were. So I guess 35-year-old tires that have been sitting in the woods probably aren't the best choice to use on the road. So I'm gonna actually get new tires for that rim and the rim on the other side. But the last thing that I have to do to make it so it's drivable is fix the directionals. For some reason, I'm having an issue with this switch right here. And I think it's also this switch and also the flasher, which is right in here. So I'm gonna take a couple minutes, and if you guys want to join me, we'll see if we can figure this out. During the test drive was a overheating issue. And come to find out, it was multiple reasons. One was blatantly obvious, the water pump was bad. I changed that, and it still actually was overheating. Not as bad, but it was, instead of going all the way to the top of the gauge, it was actually just riding right below the H, so I could tell it was actually pretty hot. So what I actually did before I changed the water pump is I changed the thermostat. But come to find out, the thermostat that I swapped with the other one, the temperature I think was too high. It was actually circulating at too high of a temperature. I noticed when I took off the cover that it actually wasn't circulating until it got really, really hot. So what I actually ended up doing, just for at least the meantime, which I asked a couple of mechanics that I know, and they recommended just taking the thermostat right out, because it isn't going to hurt anything during the summer driving. So that's what I ended up doing. So, knock on wood, it's actually running really cool now. It's actually running right down on the lower part of the temperature gauge. So that's good. I took it for another test ride, and unfortunately that's when the tire blowout happened. Luckily it was just in a little cul-de-sac that's right behind our house, so it wasn't really a big deal. So let's get into it. Let's see if we can figure out what this blinker issue is. Alright, so like any other electrical issue that you have, you always want to start at the source, and the source is where the power comes into the part of the electrical system that you're having issues with. So what I ended up doing is tracing backwards from the spot that I knew I have an issue is at the directional. And I actually originally started at the light bulbs just to see if they were correct, that they were not faulty. So actually they were, but there was actually no power still getting to the light socket. So to be able to find where the power is coming from, I start at the first switch, or the switch that you're having issues with. So I took this, I worked my way back, followed the wires all the way back to here, and the power source actually goes to the power coming out of the switch, or the key. And so I had power here, and I had power on the primary side of this fuse. Then I checked the fuse looked good, so I put this back together and made sure I had power going to the flasher, which is right here. So what I actually did at that point is I pulled out the flasher and actually stuck a wire in the slot where that wire connected to. Good, I know I have power going to the connector right here. So now I gotta see where the power is stopping. I believe it is definitely this flasher that is the problem. If it definitely is, what I'd like to do after I figure out if all the wires are good is I'd like to cut this open and actually see what that's doing. Make a bridge on this connector. Basically, I'm going to jump out the connection here, which I know has live power, and I know this port right here is for the directionals. This bottom port is actually for a light bulb that is up in the lever here of this switch. So what I'm going to do is jump from here to here, and that should give me positive power up to that switch. And I was thinking about it before I start taking this switch apart. I'm going to actually see if I have power at the lights. That would just save me from having to needlessly take that apart, because I actually don't know at this point if that is actually still good. So because going along with the thought that that flasher is bad, I'm gonna jump that out and just see what we got. Directional, I'm gonna put it to make a left-hand turn, and I believe the black wire in the back is the left-hand directional. So what I'm gonna do is test that out and see if that has power. If that switch is good, then I should get power on that black wire. Oh, I have to turn the key on. That's such an easy thing to do, is to engage everything, but not realizing you have to turn the key on to get actually power to it. All right, so we got power there. All right, so that's awesome. So I don't have to take that switch all apart. All right, so now I have the key on. I have the directional heading to the left-hand side. And what I ended up doing, because these were so corroded and they still are, I might even have to change these. To get a good ground, I used this fitting wire brush, and I really cleaned out the socket really good. Because originally I put it on there, the tester on there, and I couldn't get any reading from anything. But now I have everything running. I have the power there, and we actually got power at that socket. But I'll just show you how I test it out. So there's two little elements on the inside of this that have power for the running lights and for the directionals. So what I'm gonna do is, this is the ground. I'm gonna touch one of the elements on the inside and touch the ground. You know what, I'll touch a ground somewhere else out of here, because I know that ground's good. I'll just show you. And now we're getting power out of one of the elements. All right, so that one's all set, and I'll try the other side and I'll bring you back. So planning on doing now, I know both sides are good. So what I'm gonna do, I know that the issue is the flasher. So that's really good. That just made this simple. I have bulbs, 6-volt bulbs to replace the bulbs that were in there that were totally corroded. They were actually really tough to get out. So now let's head over to the bench and cut open that old flasher and see what happened. All right, so this is the flasher that I believe is bad. I already tried prying around the corners here to see if I could get this to pop out, but I'm not gonna reuse this. I'm just curious what was wrong with it. So what I'm gonna do is make a cut along here, around here, and split it right in half. I borrowed Tracy's Dremel tool with a cutting wheel, abrasive cutting wheel on it, and split this right open like an egg, and we'll see what's going on. So I believe how this works is the power comes in from this side here, comes up through this coil, and as the lights are used, the power going through this generates heat. And so there's a connector right here between this piece of metal that goes across here and right here. This connection right here makes the junction between the power and the load going to the lights, or actually to the switch, then to the lights. So what I believe happens is the heat generated by the resistance of the lights being used actually heats up this piece of metal, and as it distorts, it actually pulls away this connection momentarily here, and as it cools, it actually reconnects it. So this actually happens really quick when all the lights are working. So to get actually a really good test on this, because this actually was pinned to one side where it wouldn't move. So what I did is actually loosen this up and got it to reconnect. So what I'm going to do just to test this out to see if it works or not, I'm not going to reuse it, I'm going to get a new one. But anyway, just to, you know, experiment wise, and just for knowledge on how it works. That's how I believe it works. I did look it up, and it was, the videos that I saw were actually a lot simpler than what this looks like. It looks a lot more complicated. But I think the idea of how it works is basically what I was saying. So what I'm going to do is connect the rear lights. I guess they only work when there's both lights working, because you need that amount of heat generated to make that metal distort. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually connect the rear lights, and I'll show you what I'm going to do for those lights. I wanted really subtle lights. I didn't want big lights to take away from the vintage lights that I got for the rear running lights and stop lights. So I ended up getting these small but powerful LED lights, and I already installed one of them. I basically put it right on the back here below the running lights and stop light. And I figured I'm gonna give it a shot. If it don't seem to work that good, I'll get something bigger. But I really wanted to do something nice and subtle, but was able to work. So what I'm gonna do now is drill a hole on this side, matching this one. That hole was actually an existing hole like this one here, and I just figured it fit perfect. I didn't even have to drill it out at all. So what I'm going to do is put another one over here and tie them all in and see if that flasher works now. All right, so I have those little lights put in. on both sides. The mistake I made was I didn't know what any of the wires did prior to installing these. I somewhat tested them with the voltage tester, and I thought I had a good handle on how they worked, but I was mistaken on which wires go where. So how I ended up straightening it out is realizing that the power going to the brake lights was actually the same wire that connects to the directional. So originally, I think I could have did this actually without those indicator lights, but I'm gonna leave them in now because I think it's already in, and I think it doesn't hurt to have more lights. So the lights actually, the wire connecting to the stop lights are actually the same as the directional. So both the stop light and that directional work simultaneously. And when you put the brakes on, all of them light up, but the one that you're indicating, or the one that's flashing, will actually blink. So this was a little bit of a learning process for me on how to wire this. But I think I have it straightened out now. The worst thing about it is that both these lights, that light and this light, work together. And I don't mind that. I mean, it isn't a big deal. So I'm gonna leave it the way it is. But I found out that the flasher is definitely bad. And I went to the auto parts place, and he actually thinks the writing was really worn off of it, but he said by looking at it, he thinks that it's a 12-volt flasher, and that would not have worked anyway with this. And it kind of made sense because it really didn't move at all. So like all the components inside of it, because I think if you have a 12-volt flasher and you put it in with a 6-volt system, like he was saying, there's not enough draw when the lights are turned on, that it don't heat up enough to distort the metal, so it just constantly stays on. But all right, guys, so that's going to be it for this week. Have a great rest of your week. It's going to be Father's Day. Everybody have a great Father's Day, and enjoy this nice weather in the summer, and I'll see you guys next week. See what these front directionals look like. I actually like these lights. They're kind of cool. They have that ribbed look like this here. But I'm kind of psyched that those are working.